Thursday, July 21. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. As of Tuesday morning, Jamaica has recorded 19 new COVID-19 cases and 13 more recoveries. The total number of confirmed positives is now 809, while recoveries have moved to 706. The newly confirmed cases are comprised of 11 females and 8 males, with ages ranging from 3 to 70 years. They are of addresses in Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine, St. Mary, Trelawney, St. Elizabeth, St. Anne, St. James, and Clarendon. Of these new cases, 13 were imported from the United States, 5 were contacts of confirmed cases, and 1 remain under investigation. At this time, there are 278 imported cases, 246 cases are contacts of confirmed cases. There are now 63 active cases currently under observation, with 2 persons moderately ill. There are no critically ill cases at this time, and testing numbers have moved to 32,053, including 31,176 negatives and 68 pending, and the 809 positives. The Ministry of Health and Wellness on Tuesday morning released a chronicle of activities related to the consultancy firm MarketMe, Jamaica. It comes in the wake of heightened public discourse on the matter of the ministry's engagement of the firm. The timeline outlined is as follows. On January 12, 2016, the firm made a presentation of a proposal for the implementation of a social marketing campaign to support the Jamaica Moves program as a component of the National Non-Communicable Disease Strategic Action Plan 2013 to 2018 to the team at the Ministry of Health. On November 28, 2016, the ministry made submission to the National Contracts Commission for the approval of the award to the firm for an unsolicited proposal. The submission was approved December 2, 2016 for $15,900,700 for a period of 12 months. The contract was concluded on March 2018. On July 17, 2018, a new terms of reference was developed for the Jamaica Moves campaign to include Jamaica Moves in schools, Jamaica Moves in communities, and Jamaica Moves in workplaces. On December 18, 2018, a request for proposal was issued to the firm with a deadline for submission of December 28, 2018 that was further extended to January 2, 2019. On January 3, 2019, approval was granted by the Permanent Secretary for the utilization of direct contracting, given the fact that the program was to continue and similar work was to be done in relation to the delivery of social marketing interventions. An evaluation committee was convened on January 8 and January 18, 2019 to review the technical proposal. The proposal received an evaluated score of 65.6, below the threshold score of 70. However, the evaluation committee agreed to proceed to open the financial proposal given the fact that the process was a direct contracting assessment. Negotiations were conducted with the firm on February 5 and February 22, 2019. The original in-house estimate for the activity was over $166 million for 24 months. This estimate related to all advertising placement costs, material costs, costs of activations, and management consulting fees. The financial proposal submitted by the firm had a cost of $183 million. After negotiations, it was agreed that the contract would be reduced to a 1-year period, and placements of advertisements and procurement items for activations would be undertaken by the ministry. The total sum of over $51 million was determined as the ceiling. The firm was requested to further revisit the financial proposal given the new determinations, and a returned financial of over $38 million was submitted. On January 4, 2019, the contract was signed with the firm for an amount of over $38 million with 10 deliverables. On July 17, 2020, The monitoring of the contract was undertaken by a committee that was responsible for the sign-off on all technical aspects of the deliverables and the overall contract management. The contract expired on June 2020 with a total disbursement of $27 million. During the period March 17, 2017 to July 20, 2020, other payments have been made to the firm totaling $13 million. A total of 49 payments ranging from a low of $10,000 to a high of over $1 million was made. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett has issued a stern warning in response to calls to ban travelers from the United States. The calls are being made due to the surge in COVID-19 cases there. The tourism minister said if Jamaica were to go to this route, the move would shut down the tourism industry and the economy would grind to a halt. The Bahamas has reported that starting midnight Wednesday, travelers from the United States will not be allowed to enter the country, with some exemptions for emergency and essential travel. According to Mr. Bartlett, Jamaica has been managing the cases of COVID-19, so there is no need to consider a ban on U.S. travelers at this time. The Jamaica Promotions Corporation, JAMPRO, and the Bureau of Standards Jamaica are increasing their collaboration to develop Jamaica's bamboo industry as demand grows globally for renewable material sources for paper and other manufacturing needs. Diane Edwards, president of JAMPRO, says the export and investment opportunities for bamboo is one that Jamaicans should seriously look at for future development as demands grow for products manufactured using ethically sourced renewable materials. She stated that JAMPRO is already facilitating a major proposed investment which is estimated to be valued at $256 million and will create 800 jobs. The Pbcj is also supporting the project. The opposition People's National Party and its Trelawney Northern Member of Parliament, Victor Wright, have taken Prime Minister Andrew Holness to task over comments he recently made. Speaking at a Jamaica Labour Party Area Council 1 meeting on Sunday, this is what Mr. Holness said about a land deal involving Wright.
We have come across many people in the pot who have been jumping up and shouting and criticizing our steaming kettle. And they have persons there who are presently occupying government land without paying any rent or any form of remedies, who are doing business there, not paying any light bill, have been asked to do so, but haven't done so. They continue in Parliament, and they are occupying the lands. They have no documentation. They conduct business there. They are using the government's electricity. Well, the government is paying for it.
Mr. Wright then accused the Prime Minister of creating mischief. In an interview with the Jamaica Observer, he said, quote, "He's trying to get back from what transpired last week in his own cabinet. He's trying to say others are wrong to protect his cabinet members. It just won't work." End quote. Wright was referring to last week's development when government member J.C. Hutchinson was stripped of his ministerial position in the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries for alleged conflict of interest involving lands owned by Sugar Company of Jamaica Holdings.
I am satisfied that Minister Hutchinson was not doing that, and he was seeking an orderly way of settling the land so that small farmers could benefit without limiting the future prospects of development of the land. And I don't think that is in question. But there is another layer on top of that, and that requires transparency, accountability. It requires that we follow the rules, and it requires that it be competitive. And if it is not going to be competitive, then there should be a process that ensures that there are no special interests, no connected interests involved. And that is something that we have to, without fear, favor, we have to say it as it is. And I respect Minister Hutchinson for that. He has apologized to us, and I think he's the bigger man for doing it.
In the meantime, Mr. Holness said both sides of the political divide have enough wrongdoings to go around.
As I walk closer to the polling station, I would have to be asking myself, were the scandal mongerers any better? What scandals do they have in their bags? I would have to be asking myself, are the things that they are pointing out from their Dutch pot, is it better than the steaming kettle that has been doing things and improving conditions in this country?
In the meantime, the sugar company Jamaica Holdings is accusing Northern Trelawney MP and the PMP's Victor Wright of unlawfully occupying a state-owned house. According to the SCJ, Mr. Wright is in violation of a 6-year-old order to leave the property. The SCJ also says it's investigating claims Mr. Wright has racked up more than $2 million in unpaid electricity bills and a large arrears in rent in connection with his occupation of the house in Frome, Westmoreland. But Mr. Wright, who is the opposition spokesman on agriculture and rural development, has denied the allegations. The issue of HIV in the workplace took center stage at the Occupational Safety Health Act Committee on Monday. We get more in this report.
At a joint parliamentary committee considering the Occupational Safety and Health Bill on Monday, opposition member Lambert Brown brought the issue of protection for workers with HIV to the fore. This came about after a recommendation that some terms relating to HIV be deleted from a clause in the bill.
This committee is saying that in looking at the bill, having gone out and said in drafting we want to deal with these things, I need a reason why the HIV protection to citizens are not in it. But no, I agree with you. No, I understand fully what you're saying. It's not here. It's not in the bill. Maybe policy has dictated so. But I don't understand the policy to be to shut out the HIV issues, which is what I understand, Senator Langmore.
But there's no policy to shut it out. I think if you understand what Mrs. Celia Brown is saying, don't ask us to keep these clauses in our bill when there's absolutely no reference to them.
Don't ask you to keep it empty. Fill it and keep it.
What followed was a toss-up discussion between committee members to separate actual protections for workers with HIV from the proper term definitions in the bill.
As it is now, as the bill that is before us, it is not, these terms are not used in any substantive way or any at all. But having listened to stakeholders, are we saying that the stakeholders never raised any issue that may include the use of any of these terms in any way, shape, or form? Having heard the stakeholders' submissions, because they might not have been represented at the time the bill was being drafted or presented to us, but post that. And that is what I would want us to satisfy ourselves on.
Yes.
I think if we look at part 6, Chair, page 76, clause 103 going right down, it deals with discriminatory conduct, and it actually states what will be the yes. And HIV here it speaks to HIV or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, so there's no need to really define it, but we have dealt with it. It may not be that you understand the point I'm making, Chair? So taking it out is not that, it's not our intention not to deal with it. It is just that we're saying if these terms are not used in substantive provisions, you can't have it. But that is not, I think what we are describing here now is dealt with very adequately under Part 6 of the bill.
There are an estimated 18,000 Jamaicans living with HIV. The Occupational Safety Bill was brought to Parliament in 2017. The main provision of the bill is to prevent accidents and injury to health arising out of linked with or occurring in the course of work. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
The government plans to continue its free, secured Wi-Fi hotspots in public places across the island this financial year. Minister of Science, Energy and Technology, Favour Williams, made the disclosure at an official ceremony for the distribution of 32 tablet computers to teachers at the Hope Valley Experimental School in St. Andrew recently. Mrs. Williams said the service will be rolled out in Oteria, St. Anne, Port Antonio, Portland and Mapen, Clarendon. Gabrielle Thompson now takes us through the business report.
In Monday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 1,524 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 73 stocks, of which 33 advanced, 24 declined, and 16 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 41 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for AMG Packaging and Paper Company, Barita Investments Limited and Caribbean Cream Limited. Stocks declined for Blue Power Group Limited, Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited and Caribbean Cement Company. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Variable Preference, 1834 Investments and Carreras Limited. Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited was the volume leader with 10.7 million units, followed by JMMB Group Limited 7.5% with 7.9 million units, and Pulse Investments Limited with 2.7 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Monday, July 20 ended trading at $145.38. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $109.51. The pound sterling traded for $183.67 and the euro ended trading at $169.10. Oil prices rose on Tuesday, helped by positive news about vaccine trials and the European Union stimulus deal reaching levels last seen when an oil price war erupted in early March between Russia and Saudi Arabia. Brent crude futures gained $1.17 to $44.45 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 19 cents to $41 a barrel. And that's it for the business report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In regional news, Barbados recorded a positive COVID-19 case from a British Airways flight that landed last Saturday. Now, an undisclosed number of passengers have been placed in mandatory quarantine. We get more in this report from Barbados today.
An undisclosed number of passengers are now in mandatory quarantine as contact tracing continues following the positive COVID-19 case from Saturday's British Airways flight. According to Health and Wellness Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic, persons sitting near the 76-year-old passenger who tested positive for the virus will be tested again at a later date while at the Harrison's Point isolation facility. He, however, could not definitively say how many had been isolated or how long the quarantine period would last. The minister spoke with BT's Karim Smith.
Contact tracing is done regardless, but remember that these people are people who would have been awaiting test results. So they have not gone into the community or home or the airport or the crane. So it's from there straight to Harrison Point. So really and truly the contact tracing would, for the most part, be the seats on the plane. Depending on who was sitting, there's a protocol for that on plane. So depending on where you were seated, you would be considered to be a close contact. But those persons would not have left the areas that they were awaiting the test.
And that would be the persons who were around him, you're saying? They were also tested on arrival and would have been awaiting their results today?
No, results would have been yesterday. They would all have tested negative, but they would be in quarantine for a period and then tested again because the incubation period would not. If the person came on board and they were positive, then the ones who were sitting next to them would not necessarily test positive immediately. Right. So those persons would normally be in quarantine, and then they will be tested.
In the meantime, the People's Party for Democracy and Development has come out swinging against the government's reentry protocols.
The People's Party for Democracy and Development says government needs to revamp its protocols for persons entering the country. And while spokesman on tourism and the economy, Scott Weatherhead, is in agreement with the reopening of the country's borders, he is not on board with the procedure that every traveler must take a 72-hour test prior to travel. He suggested that the COVID-19 tests should be taken 24 hours before traveling to Barbados, and for all arriving passengers to be retested and quarantined for 14 days.
The way the virus is in the world today is not any better than it was when we locked down. It's actually worse. So in other words, things haven't improved more now in our source markets virally than they were at the time we took a decision that we were going to lock down the country. They haven't improved. They're actually worse. So it's just the government has made the decision we can't stay closed, we need to open our economy. But yet they're opening it with a protocol that's less than when they first closed. Because when we first decided that we were locking down, everyone coming through that airport was quarantined for 14 days. In a government facility, everyone, and they were tested. At that time, the load of the virus in the world was much lower than it is now. Now they have reopened, where there's far greater percentage of people sick in various source markets than there were when we were locked down and enforcing a quarantine. And now we're not enforcing any quarantine. We're doing a little test in the airport or 3 days before flight and off you go. That is foolishness.
Yes, it is.
It is absolute foolishness. And so while I agree that we do need to open our tourism market, absolutely. And we need to get employment in our tourism industry. Absolutely, it's important. We cannot do it at the risk of citizens' lives.
The St. Lucia Labour Party is calling on the government to waive school fees for the upcoming school term in light of the economic challenges imposed by COVID-19. Gina Philippe of HTS News Force reports.
The St. Lucia Labour Party, SLP, has slammed the government for not waiving book fees for the upcoming school term during the pandemic. The pandemic prompted the closure of classrooms, forcing educators to take a virtual approach to learning. This placed further strain on vulnerable students who have had a hard time accessing school supplies. First Deputy Leader of the SLP, Dr. Ernest Hille, says under the SLP, students would have received books at no cost during the pandemic. The statements were made at the first ever virtual SLP public meeting on Sunday, July 19th.
We should not be requiring parents to pay for school books. As St. Lucia Labour Party would have waived all school fees right now. No parent should be asked to pay any school fees for the upcoming school year. Cannot ask. There are too many parents that have lost their jobs, and those that used to hustle a living do not now have any means to earn a living. Why should they be paying school fees for this year? A Labour Party would have waived it. We would have waived it.
Castries Southeast candidate Senator Joachim Henry continues to criticize the government for favoring infrastructure projects over the educational needs of students.
You cannot put the lives on children on pause. You cannot put people's lives on pause. The children who are suffering today, you cannot tell them, wait. You could tell them, you could wait for an airport, you could wait for a highway, you could wait for a road, but the children who need to go to school, you cannot tell them, wait. It is indeed a government who doesn't care.
The SLP also continues to condemn the halting of the One Child per Laptop program by the Alan Chasney-led administration in 2017. The initiative was implemented by the opposition in 2013. Henry took issue with laptops now being a requirement on book lists.
Who had laptops being given freely to them? And to stop it, and to dare to put it on the book list. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I worked at the SSDF for so many years. Even when things were good, parents were still having the struggles to provide the school books. Back then, when things were better, they could not have provided the books. They came to the SSDF for help.
The government has been contemplating fully reopening schools to in-person instruction in September 2020, but a cloud of uncertainty still hangs over such plans, with some experts predicting a second wave of COVID-19 cases. Gina Filippi, HTS News Force.
Haiti has recorded 5 deaths from the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, as health authorities continues to appeal to citizens to follow protocols aimed at curbing the spread of the virus. The Ministry of Public Health says the deaths occurred in the West Department, Eribonite, and in the north, bringing the total of 151 since the first case of the virus was detected in the country in March. It said that the French-speaking Caribbean community state had also recorded 47 cases, new cases, that is, bringing the total number of positive cases to 7,100, by far the highest number within the 15-member CARICOM bloc. Deputy Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Peter Turnquest, has gone into voluntary quarantine after he had been exposed to persons who tested positive for the novel coronavirus. A brief government statement said that Turnquest, who is also the finance minister, had received a negative COVID-19 RT-PCR test last weekend. The Bahamas has recorded 138 positive cases and 11 deaths from the virus that was first detected in China last December and linked 14.7 million infections and 610 deaths worldwide. In sports, former Sunshine Girls vice captain Vangelie Williams has retired from the sport after nearly 14 years of playing. Williams first donned the national colors in 2006 for the under-16 team and years later transitioned into the under-21 team where she became captain. Her standout performances at the junior level led her first senior call-up in 2012. Despite stepping away from the international scene, Williams will continue to play in the local business house and club leagues. And on the pitch, West Indies cricketers Shamar Brooks and Jermaine Blackwood carved out polished half-centuries, but England leveled the 3-test series with a 113-run victory on the final day at Old Trafford on Monday. West Indies coach Phil Simmons bemoaned his batsmen's failure to convert promising starts into major scores during the game. Whereas England built a first innings total of 469 for 9, declared on the back of hundreds from Ben Stokes and Dom Sibley, no West Indies batsman has yet made a century in a 3-match campaign, now all square at 1-1. And that's the news on PBCJ. Thank you so much for watching.